All right, let's talk about what's really going on in England's schools right now. We're not looking at long-term trends today. Instead, we're going to take a snapshot of just 1 week to really get a feel for the immediate pressures, the big numbers, and the key stories that show a system being pulled in all sorts of different directions.
So, what is the real story this week? Well, if you had to sum it up in one word, it would be tension. It's this constant push and pull, between what students need and the resources available, between shiny new tech and crumbling old buildings, and between the people on the front lines and the policies coming from the top. Let's break it down with a few key figures that really tell the tale. First up, this huge number, £15.8 billion. That's the amount we're projected to be spending on students with special educational needs and disabilities by 2029. I mean, that's just a staggering figure, and it points to one of the biggest financial pressures in the entire system.
Okay, so we go from that massive multi-billion-pound crisis to something that seems a lot smaller but is honestly just as vital. 75%. That's how many primary school leaders are saying their breakfast clubs just aren't financially viable anymore. It's a really stark reminder of how even the most basic services for kids and families are getting squeezed.
And this one hits right at the very core of learning. In the last year, 1 out of every 10 maths lessons was taught by a teacher who isn't a math specialist. Now, this isn't just a number, is it? It makes you ask some serious questions about the quality of teaching kids are getting in a subject that is so fundamental to everything else. These numbers, they really shape the day-to-day reality inside the classroom. So let's move on from the big picture numbers and step inside the classroom. What's the daily reality actually like for students? This attendance snapshot from just a single week tells a really revealing story. You can see a very clear pattern. Primary school attendance, it's holding up pretty well, over 95%. But then, look at that drop for secondary schools. And then an even bigger fall for special schools, all the way down to about 87.5%. It really points to some complex challenges in keeping older students and our most vulnerable pupils in school every single day. And it's not just about being in the classroom, it's about being engaged. This research from the National Literacy Trust shines a light on a huge challenge with writing. Less than 40% of students actually enjoy it. And for teenagers, that number just plummets. So what's behind it? Well, for a huge chunk of them, it's a deep-seated fear of getting it wrong. Spelling, grammar, or just making a mistake at all. That anxiety is a massive barrier to a really fundamental skill. This quote right here points to a massive problem that's often called hidden hunger. You see, there are about 4.4 million children living in poverty in the UK, but the rules for free school meals are so strict that many of them just don't qualify. And the result is exactly what you see here. Families going into debt, racking up an average of £1,400 of debt per school, just to pay for lunch. It's a powerful reminder that what happens in the classroom depends so much on the foundations laid outside the school gates. So with all that going on, what does this pressure feel like for the adults in the building? Let's switch gears and get the view from the staff room. Wow. I mean, this survey data from the NASUW Teachers Union, it paints a really grim picture of the financial strain they're under. Just look at the chart. Nearly a third of teachers say they're very worried about their finances. This personal anxiety is the backdrop to their professional lives, and it really shows the human cost of keeping our schools running. And then you have policy decisions like this that have left a lot of people just scratching their heads. While there are these big bursaries to attract math and science teachers, the government has basically swung an axe everywhere else. Training bursaries for subjects like art, music, religious education, even English, they've been cut completely to zero. It's a move that sends a pretty dramatic signal about which subjects the system values and which it doesn't. Hey, remember that massive budget for high-needs students we talked about at the beginning? Well, this is the human side of that crisis. The Special Educational Needs Coordinators, or SENCOs, are the staffs who organize support for our most vulnerable kids. And they're reporting that their workloads are unsustainable, mostly because they're buried in administrative tasks. This creates a critical bottleneck, making it harder to get support to the children who need it most. Okay, let's zoom out one last time to see how all these individual pressures are really adding up and putting the whole system under some serious strain. This chart really puts that special needs funding crisis into perspective. Spending has just ballooned. It's up 66% in just 7 years, and it's on track to keep climbing. The Institute for Fiscal Studies is even warning that if things don't change, council deficits just for this one area could swell to a collective £8 billion.
And the pressures aren't just financial. We're seeing new technological threats pop up too. A UK government survey found that 6 out of 10 secondary schools have had a cyber attack in the last year. Because they often lack specialist IT experts, schools are becoming more and more vulnerable to things like phishing attacks and data breaches. And it's not just the digital infrastructure that's at risk. This quote from a network of academy trusts points to an accelerating rate of decay in the actual school buildings themselves. Delayed rebuilding projects are just creating a huge backlog of maintenance issues, which adds yet another layer of financial uncertainty to the pile. So with all this strain, how is the system even trying to adapt? Let's finish up by taking a look at what might be coming next for our schools. Artificial intelligence is a perfect example of this double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, there's all this excitement about using AI avatars for catch-up lessons or to help moderate tests, things that could save a lot of time and money. But on the other hand, research has shown some distressing biases in AI systems. And the truth is, not many younger kids are even using it yet. It's a tool with huge potential, but also some really significant risks. And finally, the policy landscape itself is just constantly shifting, which adds to the instability. You've got offset inspections being reformed, which has people worried they're being stripped down. Then you have really mixed messages about what a school's responsibility is for students after they turn 16. And on top of all that, a whole new set of V-level qualifications are being planned. All this change just creates this climate of deep uncertainty for school leaders trying to plan for the future. So that brings us right back to that central tension, doesn't it? You have rising student needs clashing with shrinking budgets, you have the promise of amazing new technology running up against decaying old buildings, and you have teachers and school leaders trying to navigate all of it in a policy environment that's always changing. Which leaves us with this one last question. When it all comes down to it, who is actually responsible for shaping a future for our schools that's both sustainable and effective?